Welcome to the first episode of the JPost Election Arena. I'm Lahav Harkov, and we're going to bring you weekly interviews with key figures in the upcoming election. Today, we have Labor Hatzanua's co-chair and co-candidate for Prime Minister, Tzipi Livni. Thank you for being here.
Hello.
Yesterday, U.S. Speaker of the House John Boehner invited Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to speak to both houses of Congress. And he's going to be the first political figure since Winston Churchill to have done that 3 times. In light of this, do you think that Netanyahu has contributed to a decline in U.S.-Israel relations?
I believe that the relations between Israel and the United States are of strategic nature, and it's very important that all of us will keep these relations based on bipartisan policy. And sometimes it looks that Netanyahu is not keeping this as a bipartisan, but since the relations are based on values and real friendship and also interest, so I hope that it would not affect the relations in the future.
Some people see this move as won by the Republicans, even though technically it was an invitation from both parties. Do you think that this is some sort of inappropriate political involvement in our upcoming election in Israel?
Well, I believe that we all share the idea and the interest of preventing Iran from having a nuclear weapon. There is no position or coalition in Israel in this, and it is also the strategy and the policy of the Republicans and the Democrats as well. So the question is how to achieve this goal. But basically I believe that also the Israelis understands that achieving this goal is more than addressing or having a good speech. It is more a nature of diplomacy and how to have everybody on board and not just giving speeches on the issue.
Now, you've run on a platform of diplomacy for several elections, especially on the issue of peace talks. But you've also said recently that the latest round of peace talks failed not because of Israel, but because of Abbas. And if that's true, do you still see Abbas as a partner for peace? And also, why will it be different under you and Herzog as opposed to Netanyahu if it's not Israel's fault?
Well, I can criticize, and I have criticism on the way also we acted during the negotiations, but it is also clear, and I said it publicly, that on March 17, the meeting between President Obama and Mahmoud Abbas in a way failed because Mahmoud Abbas decided not to give an answer to the American proposal that was on the table. But the real question for me as an Israeli leader is not whose blame is it, but how can we move forward in accordance to the vision of 2 states for 2 peoples that represent the Israeli interest. So assuming that Abbas choose the strategy of going to the United Nations, ICC, against Israel, as an Israeli leader, we need to find a way to move forward, whether with him or in a different direction. And I believe that our capability to have the world supporting our interest is better than Netanyahu's because it is clear to everybody that our goal is to achieve the 2 states for 2 peoples solution, and we are willing also to take some political prices in order to do so. And we have our own priorities in doing so. So the Palestinians, the world, would understand that when we stand for something, this is something which is really important for us, while on other issues that are not important for those supporting this 2 state, we can be more open and discuss it in a different manner.
But do you still think that Abbas is the best person we have to work with when you see that his party and the Palestinian Authority use language that encourages, to some extent, terrorist attacks like the ones we saw yesterday in Tel Aviv?
Excuse me?
Fatah's their party.
His language.
Yeah, not necessarily Abbas specifically, although Abbas funds, support for terrorist families.
You know that just a few minutes after this horrific terror attack in Tel Aviv, which we all condemn and we support, of course, those that are fighting for their lives in hospitals now after this attack. I heard that this is something Netanyahu said, blaming Abbas. So what? Okay, but Abbas is not the Israeli prime minister. You ask me whether he's the best person. He's the only one there. The elections are in Israel, not in the PA. So any Israeli leader need to address this situation and to address this problem. So it's not enough for an Israeli leader to blame the other, but to share with his own people what is he going to do about it? And I believe that the day after the elections we can open new opportunity. So I have my own criticism on Abbas. I think that I'm completely against what he did in taking us to the ICC. It's something which is completely against the understanding that we have with the Palestinians. I believe that it is also against the Palestinian interest, because he would not create or establish a Palestinian state by taking us to the ICC. But we need to, it's a tough neighborhood, and any Israeli leader need to address this situation. Sometimes you have Abbas, sometimes you have Hamas, and we need to address different policies to the different parts of this region. One to Abu Mazen, the other to Hamas, the third to the moderate or pragmatic Arab states, also to the world, Europe, United States. It's a matter of diplomacy, and we know how to handle this.
Okay, now I have some questions from our Facebook page. Brian from Chicago wants to know why you think the outcome of giving land in the West Bank to the Palestinians will be different than what happened in Gaza, where we now have Hamas, where Hamas took over and we now have rockets.
I think that we need to think about the future of the State of Israel, and the only way to keep the values of the State of Israel as a Jewish democratic state is by dividing this tiny place into two. One, Israel as a Jewish democratic state, and the other, the Palestinian state. We withdrew from Gaza and we got Hamas in return, and I believe that when it comes to Hamas, we need to attack them and to use military force, not to negotiate with them, and not to show any flexibility when it comes to those using terror against Israel. But I believe that as a state, Israel is strong enough to address this kind of problems of military or terror attacks. And I'm not even trying to sell the Israeli public that we have peace around the corner, that when we just enter the negotiations room, we would sign an agreement and live happily ever after. This is not the situation. But I believe that we need to make a distinction between our military force or Israel's security needs and settlements activities. Mm-hmm. And even those criticizing the fact that we withdraw from Gaza are not thinking in terms of let's rebuild the settlements. They are thinking about whether we need to have Israeli army fighting terror there. So we can use, and I'm in favor of supporting Israel security, using Israeli military to do so. But my ideology is not about, keeping Greater Israel without any hope for peace.
You're saying essentially that a two-state solution isn't necessarily what's going to bring peace. It's just better for Israel as a society and security-wise?
I hope that in the future it will bring also peace. But I'm not thinking about peace in a naive way or a romantic way. It's a tough neighborhood. We would face terror. But we need to take, the choices in the Middle East is between bad options sometimes. But I know that without having this vision of two states for two peoples, the other vision of Greater Israel is not going to be Israel. It's going to be an ongoing conflict between two people, the Jewish people and the Palestinians, that would never end. So we are going to lose what I believe is Zionism, and this is having Israel as a Jewish democratic state.
Susanna from Florida asks how voters can trust you if you change parties all the time. I believe it's 4 parties in the past decade.
Because it's not 4, it's 3, but because I never changed my ideology. She can check all my speeches in my first day in politics. Okay.
I'm going to say a couple of phrases and you can answer yes or no.
Okay.
Abbas as a partner for peace.
Very problematic, the only one we have.
Is Abbas a terrorist?
No, he used to be, not now.
Okay. al-Fahim as part of a Palestinian state.
al-Fahim is an Israeli city.
Khaneen Zouabi in the Knesset.
I hope not, but it's not my choice.
Dividing Jerusalem.
Hope not.
But there's a possibility.
No, part of the negotiation is to keep Jerusalem united and under Israeli sovereignty.
Okay. Elected officials keeping the right to remain silent when they're under investigation.
I'm completely against it.
Electoral reform.
I'm for it.
Public transportation on Shabbat.
Partially.
A long weekend, like Sundays as...
Completely for it.
Separation of religion and state.
separation from religion and politics. But Israel is a Jewish democratic state, and it's very difficult to say what does it mean, Jewish state. I believe that this is from a national perspective, not religious one, but it's very difficult to define it.
Okay, well, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.